Hello, Gareth. How are you? Good to see you.
Great to see you too, Siobhan. It's been a little while. I'm a little bit sleepy. It's very early in the morning in Australia, but fantastic to be with you this morning.
I think the clock's changed and it's whacked out my whole schedule with everyone in Australia. So I'm making you all get up really early. I'm super sorry.
No, it's great. I'm looking forward to the conversation. I want to miss this one.
No, perfect. Thank you. And welcome everyone to Skills Connect. This is a podcast where we have conversations with the most bold and most responsible change makers in the world. I'm Siobhan Savage. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Reejig. And today I am joined by Gareth Flynn. So for those that may not know Gareth, and for our American listeners, just to give you some context, Gareth is the leader of the workforce strategy consultancy called TQSolutions, based here in Australia. Gareth has spent over 2 decades helping some of the world's largest employers reimagine how they attract, grow, and retain talent. We started out together back in the skills strategy space, and now we're working in these new operating model designs together. So, really focused on powering this AI powered workforce, looking at the future state planning. And Gareth has become one of the most trusted voices in all things workforce transformation. It's really funny, Gareth, to see you popping up when I'm in America on like your research being used and stuff. I tagged you in on one because I was like, how the hell did that happen? That's how much did you pay for that? So
It's good to
it was
see.
very
It's good
funny.
to see
It
global
is.
reach.
It is, it is. And he's just for folks that know as well, he's also the driving force behind TQ's Global Skills Research Initiative, where he basically gets to interview some of the top leaders and share the knowledge with the crowd. So if you're not following Gareth on social, I really, really hope you do because he's great and we'll share you his links as well. So, Gareth, welcome.
Thank you for a lovely introduction. Although it's a bit frightening, you said the word 2 decades. That makes me feel very old, Siobhan.
Or very experienced and can charge a lot.
Oh, very experienced. That's right.
I use that 2 decades when I'm in a bid proposal. So Gareth and I literally, I remember when I first started the company, it was like 5 years ago, and I was really focused at that time. And I came across you, Gareth. So you've been like on our journey, kind of as an observer on the sideline of Reejig, and a lot has changed. A lot has evolved. I think we have both went on an evolution together, which has been really
Yeah.
exciting to watch. You started out very much so focused on the recruitment and kind of like you described it like an augmentation business as well, right? So can you give folks a little bit of context of like
Sure.
where were you, where are you now, what are you excited about? Because I think that part is super helpful.
Yeah, no problem. So TQ, as Siobhan said, nearly 2 decades old. Our legacy and our core was in talent acquisition transformation. So I came from an RPO background. So that was heartland territory to me. So we spent the first 10 years helping companies insource TA, build functions, optimize functions, build their tech stacks, work on their brand. You're right. We also had an augmentation play, which was a quasi outsourcing business, but on a much more piecemeal basis. And over the course of the last decade, we've gradually been pulled more and more and more into kind of workforce strategy, workforce analysis, and workforce transformation. It's also where the market's moved. It's where my interest is. It's where I see our future being. I mean, TA is always going to be part of our world. But I think for me, the most exciting thing at the moment is AI adoption, workforce disruption transformation, task intelligence, skills intelligence, work analysis, work redesign. This is where I see the future of our business being anchored in. And and you're right. I have followed your journey. We've kind of moved through that together over the last few years,
Yeah.
and super excited about where the market's heading at the moment.
Yeah, and I think the timing of I wouldn't call it a pivot for me or you. I think it was an evolution of
Mm,
listening to our customers. People say to me, "Oh, you pivoted." And I was like, "No, I didn't. I evolved." And it's what we all should be doing, and all of our business should be doing this, right? If you're staying the same and locked to the same thing that you were, selling to your businesses 10 years ago, I can tell you right now, it's not going to go so well. But it's been really interesting to see your evolution as well, because like right while we've been evolving, and I think we've been quite in sync around the way that we're seeing it. And it's because you and I spend a lot of time with customer.
yeah.
You're very hands in as well as me. Like I'm very focused on like actually why is this not working, and like the skills side of things. So you've talked a lot about helping organizations rethink how they design work for years. but before sort of skills-based became a trend, you were already doing this, but it was just not called skills-based workforce, right? Like it was
Yeah.
like actually focused on that problem. So, can you walk us through how sort of you first started tackling those talent challenges at TQ, and like before skills-based became like a word you would Google, right? Like it was kind of like, you were solving real problems for customers. What kind of things were you focused on that weren't labeled as skills?
Yeah, look, it's a really good question, actually. And so transformation of talent functions is core to the business over the years. And I think, what we do really well as a business is unpack problems to solve. And that could be one of our big retailers who's really struggled trying to attract and retain people in Western Australia and Northern Australia, which is a nightmare to try and recruit in because of our mining industry. Or it could be a healthcare company that's desperately trying to find and keep nursing staff.
Mm-hmm.
So we home in on these problems and then try and work the problem. Now, often or not, that led to sourcing strategy, brand strategy, but some alternate way of recruiting or thinking about their experience in the business. But in some cases, it was also about, okay, we need to think differently about this thing we're hiring. We need to think about what is the success profile of this thing, this person, this type of role we're trying to recruit. And I think even then it was about kind of deconstructing the job, thinking differently about the type of hire that companies were trying to make. And they were kind of doing skills, but not doing skills.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't a thing, but companies were trying to unpack the people they were trying to find and keep in a different way, because the old way wasn't working, because our market's very talent scarce. And we were doing adjacency work without knowing we were kind of doing adjacency work, thinking about alternate sourcing grounds for talent, thinking mobility wise, starting to reduce the threshold of the match. There was one customer, a big bank we worked with, where we almost had this expression that 70% is good enough, because we can train or develop or work on the 30, but it's better to move this talent internally rather than trying to find it externally. So, before skills was skills, the problem was finding, and the problem was keeping critical skills in businesses. And that's always been a problem.
And it's still the problem.
And it is still a problem.
So,
but we had very clunky, very manual, very human heavy ways of having to do this analysis and work, which is where, when AI started to come in, that's when obviously skills started to appear as a thing. And that meant we could do a lot more of this work more quickly, more efficiently, and at scale.
Yeah. Yeah. And what you're saying is actually really interesting, because we actually have a lot of the same problems. We just branded it into something, over the last couple of years, right? When you think about it, like we turned it into like a hype cycle, and a movement, right? And I think that's really interesting. One of the things that I will, as etchings to my brain, when I look back at the whole Reejig journey, I remember having a call with you, and it was like 3 years ago, and things weren't going so well for me, because I was right in that like storm of the matches are not working, the skills, and it's very recruitment centric. Like, you remember when we first started, and I was like, it's not working, and I'm like, it's not bad, but it's not good, but it's not enough that people are going to be like enamored by the transformation. It's not living up to the thing we're promising. And I remember calling you and talking about, hey, I think I got the skills thing wrong. Like, I think actually that it's not about skills. And we had this like whole big conversation, and a lot of what I was going through at that moment was really like, holy crap, it's not actually about skills. Skills is just an outcome of actually understanding the work. And we've been having these conversations. I've debated with people a lot over the years, and then I can see like how people are coming along the journey, or some people are against it for whatever reason. When we were going through that, like, one of the things that was really interesting was that you're able to step back and kind of go, well, hold on a second. Like, can you talk through in a really simple way, like, to the listeners? Because there's a lot of folks that have bought into skills, have put their reputation on the line. They have maybe procured a technology. Maybe they've spent a whole pile of consulting money. I don't know. These folks have done a lot. And it wasn't that they were wrong. It's just that given the evolution of what we've now learned, like how would you think about when we talk about skills versus work and the whole, like, what do you think about the skills-based workforce? Like, what's your take on that whole place now, given everything that you've learned? Because I think it's a really interesting and a non-filtered answer so that everyone, like, you know what I mean? Like, I think would
Yeah,
be
no,
great.
so look, I'll be very transparent. So I think firstly, I just want to acknowledge for the audience that you were probably, in fact, you were the first person to present to me an alternate view. And it was about 3 years ago. And skills may not be the currency that everyone thought it was. So I just want to acknowledge that. You were definitely the first to challenge that view. So for the audience, I just finished 2 years ago quite a major consulting piece with one of our Australian businesses on skill strategy. And I was just reflecting on that project whilst dog walking, something I do regularly. And I just had a nagging thing on my shoulder saying, had I drunk the skills Kool-Aid? And I thought about, HR tech companies trying to scale, venture capitalists who support them, industry analysts that, benefit from some of this, big consulting firms that benefit from some of this. And I just had this nagging doubt that, are we on the wrong strategy? So my skills research was premised on, I need to have a point of view that's mine and that's ours as TQ. So the first thing I did was go looking for detractors to skills. So people who just didn't buy into it. Mark Efron, Dart Lindsley, Aaron McEwen from Gartner. There was a whole number of people I spoke to that had an alternate point of view. None of them were saying skills weren't important. Absolutely not. But they were saying it may not be the thing we need to focus on as a priority. So I had some really additional signals after you. Aaron he called it out very clearly to me early in that research. And then I started to speak to companies that were on skills journey, started to see some of the benefits they were seeing, also the challenges they were experiencing, of which there were many. And so I started to unpack, okay, this thing is worth it in the end, but man, are we actually going about it the right way? And I think during the course of 2024, there are a few more signals that Sandra Lachlan from EPAM and I collaborate a fair bit at the moment. She has a different point of view. Mark Steven Ramos has been writing some wonderful material on particularly task intelligence as a primary. And so I started joining all of these dots. And then over Christmas, it was about, okay, AI disruption at scale, workforce disruption at scale. And for me, this was the clincher in a changing view of mine. When I started thinking about work and workforce and workplace with AI, I went, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
Jobs are absolutely no longer stable, nor is work. The muscle that companies need to build, which they don't have, is work analysis and detailed work analysis. That is an imperative. And it's something that we've got to, yes, you can get consultants to come and do some of this stuff like us, but it's a muscle they have to build themselves, because this is going to be an ongoing need as we get wave and wave and wave and wave of technology and AI disruption. So for me, the work analysis is now primary, driven by AI. And what comes out of work analysis is task intelligence. Task intelligence helps you repackage and redesign work. Once you've done that, we know what work humans are doing. We know what skills they need. And I think the kicker for me, when I started thinking about this cycle, is that workers and skills and leaders and skills didn't play together well, because they didn't get it. Skills is this ethereal thing that's not connected to anything. AI, work analysis, task intelligence to skills connect skills to work and work output. So workers and leaders are going to get why HR's telling them to do this upskill, reskill program, and why this is critical for their career, because they can connect it to work. And so I think there is significant second mover advantage in this space, because adoption of skills and skill strategies, which is inevitable in my view. I mean, I think this is an inevitability. is the adoption rate is going to go sky high because it's going to be connected to output and people will get why it's important. So my viewpoint's really changed. And I think I'm going to call it skills-based organization is one of the industry's best marketing taglines created in the last 10 years. And it's made a lot of people quite a bit of money, but it's distracted folk from and businesses on what they should be focused on as priority. So that's how my evolution has changed, particularly over the last 18 months.
I love it because firstly, thank you for being so open and honest about that, because I think my experience to date was like, people were like, she's killing the company. Like, do you know what I mean? Like she's killing the company and like, this is not like, this is terrible and blah, blah, blah. But I think the thing that I learned from that whole journey of telling everybody, hey, here's everything I got wrong was, there's a whole pile of people that are responsible to solve this problem and they are doing their best to solve it with what they have at that moment. And at that moment, that was what the market had. So it wasn't if all the skills leaders that went down this road were wrong. It was what was available at the time to try and solve the problem, which they were all very passionate about solving. I think where there's a bit of like a fork in the road now is like, it's very clear that there is another way. And if you resist your own evolution, that's the problem. Like I think like folks that maybe did go down the talent marketplace road, our customers have all evolved and have the work ontology inside of their marketplaces now. You know what I mean? Like it's not a if or not, it's like let's evolve. And whether you went down marketplace road or talent intelligence or whatever, there's still a place because people have skills, work has tasks, and you require skills to complete the task, right? And then I think to your point about the AI, like AI does not automate skills. And this is one of my biggest bugbears when vendors are selling to customers right now, that like, I'll tell you what skills are going to, guys, AI automates tasks, not skills. So if you're looking at skills to solve that problem, I can tell you right now, the report you're giving to your CEO is wrong. One task can have up to 5 or 6 skills, depending what the task is. And then you're looking at like task, subtask, action, all formulating into work. And Josh Burrs in his call is starting to call it, and you see a lot of the more analysts now, like Gartners and stuff, they're classifying it as work intelligence. So what was it, the talent intelligence, which is a different category, it still serves its purpose for what you folks need to, like, mobilizing your people, looking at mobility and career pathing, and very important part of the process. But work intelligence is now this new category, which is where the CEO is very focused right now. And I think your point is exactly right. And I think the ability for us to like make mistakes and learn from the mistakes is the best thing and the best way to learn. Like I look back on my journey, Gareth, and I'm like, I am so glad that I went into customer X and their data was terrible and they shouted at me for the matches, because if I didn't have that experience, and I look back on all of those transformations, like 99.9%, that was a data problem. Like no AI would be able to do anything, because although I'm part of the people that spent a whole pile of money making skills-based workforce a marketing hype, so I have to take ownership for that. Probably spent about $50 or $60 million into participating in that. But I think the AI is not a magician. It needs good quality data on your workers, and it needs good quality data on your work in order for it to make a good recommendation. And if you don't have what was really interesting in my journey was that the people data was easy to solve. I actually could curate profiles for your people very easily. There was the work part that was really hard. Because look at the job architectures. Oh my God, like built for the 80s by dinosaurs, and like their HR people who are consultants coming into your company, who don't understand your company, describing your work in a way that makes no sense to the business. It is not how the business would describe work, but yet here we are, that's powering all of the decision-making when it comes to our talent strategies. Like that in itself has to get blown up. Like for me, I'm out on job architecture. Like I think it's like, if you keep buying that job architecture, absolutely people need to have a hierarchy in their work, so you understand it's kind of like one foot in the past and one foot in the future. Have still the hierarchical thing of how jobs are described for compliance and EA and REM, but have this understanding of the work in a dynamic function, which looks at like everything from outcome to task to subtask to action, and then the skill triangulated to those. That's what customers need to build now. And I think that's where you and I very much so align, and we're starting to see a lot of mutual customers that are now going, oh, I get it. Like they're like, yes, my CEO has just got a board initiative now where they have to do this, and this makes so much more sense. So I love that you've went from that like kind of journey of evolution, and it's not a pivot, you've evolved. You've evolved your thinking.
And I think, Siobhan, if I reflect on it as well, 2 years ago, when I had this kind of initial thought bubble of have I swallowed the Kool-Aid, we hadn't seen agentic AI. So we hadn't seen what was coming. So I think the agentic AI evolution that, it really hit me in the face when I went to Unleash in Paris last year. I came back from there going, holy crap, I've got to really radically change my thinking. We do a lot of work in HR tech stack advisory. One of the things that I really realized there is that, well, firstly, I've always said this about skills. It's not an HR thing. It should absolutely be a business thing. And HR can't drive an AI strategy for an enterprise. The enterprise drives the AI strategy for the enterprise. So the other thing I've started to realize as well, that my economic buyer, your economic buyer, is likely not to be as much HR in the future. It is your CTO, your CAIO.
Yep.
It's someone who is thinking about data and AI and architecture at an enterprise level. And sure, we've got to influence them about what HR needs, but we also need to kind of align greatly with what those people are doing. And you're so right. Skills is a data problem. Task intelligence is a data problem. I mean, I've been spending the last 3 days with Sandra at EPAM, who's over in Australia, and oh man, what they're doing with data and how they're collecting it. And we're not talking about structured data that's in systems. We're talking about trying to unpack data that's in people's heads, using AI to extract that through interviews, through shadowing, through taking what people are saying about the work they're doing and actually codifying it so that AI can do something with that. I mean, it's insane. It's like next level. So everything that we're talking about today is a data problem. And again, my massive takeaway from this last few days is your data strategy, your data architecture is the key to success and needs to be priority almost before you do anything else, is get that foundation right and build on top of that.
Yeah, completely agree. I think the thing why we've been growing so quickly, especially since we've moved to the US, like we grew fast. You remember when we started Reejig, we were like fastest growing startup in APAC, right? Like we were fast. I've never seen anything like what we're experiencing now. This time I've got a few more gray hairs and I know what to do this time. And a lot more agents that are in my business. So I feel like a lot more prepared. But like what I've noticed is there is a on fire problem right now where the CEO is wanting to reinvent because they've got operational efficiency and board pressure around velocity and productivity. So you've got like this chunk of problem over here. And then you've got the requirement from the CPO to getting demanded to tell me like, what will my workforce impact look like? What will happen? And you cannot and will not see orgs successfully do this transformation if the two partners aren't playing together. So what we've seen in a lot of customers, and you've been talking to quite a lot of my customers this week, there's a lot of triangulation in the CEO, the CFO, and the CPO or CHRO all now working together to really create this like overall transformation. And I never seen that in the skills space. The skills thing was a very HR problem. It was a kind of like HR thing, let's sell it to the business. Everyone blamed it not working. And the other thing I learned was so when we first started, we used to tell ourselves that the reason why this thing wasn't working so well was change management. You need loads of change management for this stuff, right? That's what we always kept saying was the reason. It wasn't change management. It's like we were telling leaders to now start calling the thing that, like when they call you up, they don't go, can I have a Python, a communication, and they call you up and say like, I need these things done. And like that's and like for this amount of time and like hurry up, you know what I mean? Like they don't call you up. So you're kind of like trying to like influence people that you didn't have a whole pile of influence on. So then when they didn't adopt these marketplaces and behave in the way projects and gigs are the one that's the most interesting I've seen at failure level, where they don't work when it's the leader demand leader is actually required because we're trying to make them do things which is not natural to them. But what was interesting on my journey was like we always used to at the start, and still the vendors will say this, it's a change management issue. It's not, it's a data problem. Like it literally is a data problem. And you need one common language way of work to describe it, whether you're in HR or whether in your business, everybody has to be talking the same language.
Yeah.
And the language should be what's naturally being done at the work level. And then you can go to the skill level because you know the work that's being done. So most customers typically start their journey, and you probably have seen this in some of your consulting work where they kind of come to you and they go, "We know we need to do this. Like this is very overwhelming. I was just pitching 12 months ago the skills space to them. Like how do I sort of get people on board with this?" And what we kind of say to them, and I would love to know your view, we kind of say like number one, let's first get you like your own work architecture which is harmonized. So your old job architecture, it's terrible. Let's update that and make sure it's like with the work ontology, it's all collectively this one common language of work, and we give them that data so that that kind of becomes that critical infrastructure. And then we say you've got work intelligence which can help you make decisions on the phase one, which is the redesign. So what
Yeah.
decisions are you going to make to evolve your workforce? And then we go into, okay, now we're going to look at agents and where is required for those tasks. So the one thing we see a lot of is people get stuck in status quo is they get the work ontology, they get the intelligence, but then the agent part, it's like, oh, like what do we do? We've never, that's where support needs to be brought in, I think. You
Yeah.
know,
It's
like a
new.
whole pile of people, yeah, they've never built agents before. They don't know how to do it. It's kind of scary. Plus, you don't want to have like a BYO AI, people going off, running around, building their own version of the processes. Like you want an enterprise-wide transformation where the agents are being deployed like the plumbing, right? Like you've got water
Yeah.
through the pipes. You don't want people sticking nails in each part of it, dependent on how they view that process, right? Because that will turn into a disaster. That's typically what we see with our customers. And then the final step we typically see is, okay, now when you bring in the agent, it's like Jenga, you take out tasks, but you're adding in some new tasks because you're re-engineering. That is the flow of what we see and the phases. What are you seeing on the ground with customers right now in terms of like the maturity of where they're at? Like I know Australia is a little bit behind America just because we naturally are, but where like I'm starting to see a lot popping up from that region now. Where are you seeing it?
Yeah, look, I think we are so this week's pretty important for, well, me, my business, and what we're trying to achieve here within the market. So we're in an education mode, Siobhan, I think, with a lot of businesses on flipping the conversation towards work analysis and task intelligence. We're at that point. There are clearly some forward-thinking companies, some of which are your clients, and we've worked with previously, who are on that journey already. But I think for the majority, and yeah, again, going back to that second mover advantage, there were some that were very slow on skills, which actually in hindsight is great because now they don't have to invest a shitload of money in skills and stuff that others have done. And so this week it's about educating about, okay, there's a different way to do this, and it's a data
Yeah.
problem. And we now know about AI coming in and disruption. And I think what we've seen in 2025 in this region is the C-suite putting pressure on businesses to develop their AI strategy, which is actually accelerating people's interest in work and task intelligence because they've kind of got to. So my prediction is that we will see a rapid take up of work intelligence type activity this year
Yeah.
that will drive the skills activity later this year. There's a competitive tension at the moment. Companies need to do this or they're going to have a Kodak moment. I think there's going to be a fair few Kodak moments in the ASX 200 companies here and in other countries around the world where they're slow to move. So I think for us, we're trying to shift the narrative. We're trying to shift the conversation, and that's why we've got Sandra out from the US, because I want her to kind of paint the picture of what is possible, doable, and what good looks like.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm trying to get her to sort of share that message locally. But there's not many of our businesses that are forward progressed on this.
Mm-hmm.
Those that are, I think, are in a great place from a competitive perspective. Because we got in 2 years' time, we're going to get, if I was 25 again, Siobhan, and I wish I was, and I had the knowledge I had in my head today, I'd kind of be going, okay, I'm going to set up an AI native business.
Yep.
My big question will be, which companies am I going to kill? Which sectors am I going to disrupt? How am I going to build this business that will have so much competitive advantage from an operational cost perspective that these big guys who are messing around, flip-flapping around on what they're trying to do, they're going to go out of business.
Yeah.
And so in the next 2 years, these bigger businesses need to really rethink themselves with some audacious goals, 30, 50% off their operational expenses. That's the kind of thing they need to be thinking about, because that's what they're going to be competing with in a matter of years. And that's the agitation I want to take to the market here.
Yeah, amen to that. One of the things, part of like thing that sticks out for me was I remember when the AI thing happened, like the generative AI thing happened, and I was early to kind of play. And I remember thinking, I want to test this myself and see if it's actually like, I was kind of like, let me get my hands around this. And I was also like, the market crashed at the time. So like, I was also surrounded by a whole pile of shareholders that were like, putting pressure on me, but I was super aware of my responsibility at a shareholder level, right? Like I was very aware of that. And that gave me a lot of like, oh, it was very stressful. But I remember being in Paris and I remember talking to Mike and I remember saying, one of our other co-founders, and I remember saying, we were talking about, because we were playing with it. We were like, oh, this is good. Like, and this was like early. Like we were like, this could be incredible. Like what we could do with this. And we were really afraid. We were like, I was like sitting there going like, there's going to be a business, that's going to be AI first, and it's going to come and it's going to kick my ass. And I'm going to get like absolutely taken out of the market. And I remember leaving Paris going, hold on a second. Why don't I just become that? Like literally, I remember thinking like, instead of me being afraid of the boogeyman and actually being terrified of what was coming after me, like I got to become that. And like, that was like where I did this like hard handbrake moment. I was like handbrake right on, like literally got off that flight, went home, had a sleep. Next day woke up and I was like, told my team, we are designing for this and this is going to be uncomfortable and this is what we're doing. And if I get it wrong, we get it wrong. But I believe that this is where we're going to go. And I had like a 6 month of hell of a lot of pain of like, just, it was painful because people thought I was crazy. And like reckless and all the other things that fair enough. But I remember then going, actually, and I think you have that moment too. Like you've got this opportunity. Nothing is standing in the way of folks completely reinventing. Like every day we're waking up, we have this opportunity to completely reinvent. Whether you're the biggest organization in the world, look at the US government right now, right? Getting run like Twitter.
I'd rather not. Sorry.
But you know what I mean? Like, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, why not? Like, and I think the point that you made about the Kodak moment is that anyone who's a leader right now, if you're not thinking about reinvention, we're not talking about tweaks and pivots. We're talking about complete reinvention of who you are, how you operate, how you make money, how you deliver a service. You're going to have a person like me who's going to build $1 billion company with under 100 people. Like that's real. Yeah, I'm going to do that, absolutely. Like for sure. And that's where it becomes like really scary. And I think like most corporates that I'm talking to, where I told that story, and that was how we grew so quickly in the early days. I told this story really publicly, and then I was getting all these calls. Can you come and tell us how you thought about that, why you did it? And that was like folks really at the early generative AI start of the deal, right? Where they were like, we kind of admire the startup mode. Like, can you explain that? And I think what you're experiencing this week was so interesting to hear, that you've now got a lot of folks that traditionally would have been legacy skills, like that world, who are now really embracing and having this open mindset. And I honestly think that they're incredible people to be in that room and to have an open mind and to kind of their job is to steer the business in the right direction. So the fact that you've got all those people, coming to you, and Sandra's perfect for, she's the exact she's the exact energy that you need when you don't know what to do. It's like, okay, let's go. Do you know what I mean? Like here's what you need to do. Just get going, people. Like, just start. Like, and I think that's going to be. I'm excited to watch the outcome of like all the Australian companies now starting to really think about this. The other thing that I think is going to be really exciting. So on one side, you've got this big, bold reinvention, but at the other side, no company wants to be harvesting people out of work. They want to be responsible. The CEO has a responsibility. This is the moment I believe that the HR team really become the critical component of the team, because AI should be treated like a worker, but also like when we're doing our AI strategy and we're impacting folks' jobs, this is where actually their job is to re-engineer and help the organization navigate people to meaningful work. So if anything, I think this is probably the most exciting place. If I was back in my old career, I would be so excited right now about the impact that I could have. Like, do you see, has that sunk in for folks yet, that like this is actually a moment for them that they should not waste?
Oh, Siobhan, this is a great question. Look, I'm going to call something out here as well. We've had some reflections during the course of this week, and we've said it at a couple of events publicly. There is a lot of BS in the market at the moment about what the impact of AI is going to be on workforce. And there's a massive elephant in the room that no one's really talking about. The kind of zeitgeist you hear in market is all rosy about augmented humans and more meaningful work, and it's all going to be great. But the signals I'm starting to see, the case studies I'm starting to see, it is HR and companies' responsibility to try and do the right thing by the humans impacted. Totally with that. If we can reskill, upskill, and move them to different roles and jobs and work, phenomenal. But the reality is we are going to have impacted people, and the number of jobs in lots of businesses is going to shrink. And I used the DBS announcement, DBS Bank, 4 weeks ago, based out of Singapore. They announced one new agent that they've implemented that has resulted in 4,000 people who will exit that business, and 1,000 new people were announced to be hired, which is wonderful. But there is a net negative 3,000 people.
Yeah.
So managing that disruption, the human impact, the how do we do this most responsibly? How do we try and retain as many people as possible? Companies have a duty of care. There is a social license and a duty of care. But I think we need to stop, and I used this expression yesterday at an event, we need to stop lying to our workforces, and we need to be facing into this, working with our workforces as we navigate this process, because the market is not facing into this fact. It is presenting a too glossy view, and I actually think it's holding companies back because they can't talk about the elephant in the room publicly, and everything's behind the scenes. And I think we need to get it on the table, and we need to embrace the workforce on this journey, communicate these impacts, because at the end of the day, that's going to result in a better outcome for everyone.
Agree.
And there won't be any surprises. So that, that's been I've been tracking announcements. It's a bit geeky, I know, but announcements.
Have you got an agent for this?
I do store everything that I can interrogate. Yes, it's all in Notebook LM. Yep. But you know what I mean? It's I just think the narrative we are going to our businesses with is not honest. And I think we need to be honest with our people in business about what's coming. That's I don't know what we've not spoken about this, Siobhan, before, but I don't know what your view on this is. But a lot of the HR tech vendors are presenting this glossy, rosy picture because they don't want to be seen as the catalyst to this. But it's not truthful.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of bullshit in general. Like, yes, it is going to take people out. Like that's like guaranteed. Like I can tell you from my own lived experience, and I'm a tiny sample set, right? I saved $1.7 million a month. I had a sales team that I was spending $1.7 million a month on. and I automated that whole thing out. I make more revenue than I've ever done.
Yeah.
And all of those sales reps were, not happy with the outcome, but like they were sending 80% of their time was sending emails to get a demo with people like you. And
Yeah.
I built an agent that removed that whole requirement. So I can tell you right now, as someone who's been through that, there is probably a communication thing that I didn't understand, or I was very new to all like that. I was early, right? So like I think in my own lived experience, sometimes you just got to rip the band-aid off and just do it. And like it's a short moment of pain. I would never have had a place for people to transition because I was a startup. But if
Sure.
I'm looking at
Sure.
big corporates, I think the advice that I'm telling them is firstly, our mission is create a world with zero waste to potential. That still stands true. So I don't want to work with customers who are just doing it to harvest people out of jobs. All of
Yeah.
the customers that we work with, we put them on the bold and responsible strategy. So
Yeah.
bold reinvention, but responsible reallocation or reinvention of the workforce. So, and like, look, being really transparent, like that plays perfectly into my product suite too, right? Because I've got, my work operating system and then I've got my marketplace, right? Like I've got the two products that deploy. But the one thing that I think it's happening, and I can't see as much news in Australia anymore because I'm very American news. Like a lot of my feeds that I used to get, I don't get them as much anymore. But over here, it is a very narrative of like, the last 6 months was very like, no, it's humans and AI together in this beautiful relationship skipping into the sun. In the last probably 2 months, it started to change a little bit where you're seeing these memos come out, which is like, it's non-negotiable. And if you don't like it, well, you can go work somewhere else. So you're starting to see this kind of semi-shift in the market. But the other thing I think that's going to be really important, like one thing I've noticed is like, regardless of how you manage your comms, if you go and let's say you go and you understand your work, you understand with work intelligence where to automate and where's the best value for the business to do that, and you build the agents. You see, if you don't bring your people on the journey, none of this works. If people don't use the agents, so you could have a subset, right, where you could look at 100% of your population. Let's take the sales team as an example. You have a sales team, and let's say you build these agents. Now, humans, there's no autonomous agents operating in the market, no matter what everyone tells you. This is subtask agents right now. They are looking at parts of the agent, right? So if you do not have your employees use the agents in the way that you want it, you don't set new expectations for this is what's going to be required from your role right now. And if you say to people, everybody, your job this year is to build 2 agents and tell us how it went. If that's the way you're doing your employee part, this whole thing's going to fail and you're going to be in big trouble. The thing that's going to be really important is it's the mindset shift, it's the change shift, but also like, how do you teach your people to amplify themselves? So the amplification of the employee is critical. If you do not tell them and are honest and teach them that, hey, Gareth, did you know that in the role that you do today, I've got 7 different agents that are already pre-built in Copilot Studio right now that can help you do that way faster so you can focus on like high value work or at least get home for dinner this week. Like that's a different message to people.
Yeah.
Because most of the problem I see in and by the way, we are real life customers. We are in deep, full transformations, doing this and have been doing this for quite some time. So a lot of what I'm telling you is like live from the trenches, right? You could go and have the best agent strategy, and if no one adopts it, then like it didn't work. Did it even happen? And then you got to report back up to the AI leaders to say, nope, no one adopted. And it looks like the project was a failure. It wasn't, because if you look at the 20% of folks that did adopt it, they had off the charts productivity gains, quality went up in their tickets. We see this massive advancement of how they're able to take on more and the capacity, shoots up. But then the 80% who, for whatever reason, because we didn't do the things that we should do, didn't adopt and didn't do the thing that we wanted to, or we didn't set expectations clearly enough, then it net looks like a failure, because 20% of nothing is invaluable, right? So this is what I think it's an honesty and openness. I do like in favor of like trying to sit in the middle of it without being too, like, I'm trying to have empathy for it right now. Like, I think most folks don't know where the AI is coming in right now. That's part of the problem. So like right now, everyone's in phase 1. So like even the people that build AI are in phase 1 themselves, where they're thinking about like, where is the best place to bring this thing? And like we're working with the most advanced customers in the world right now, and we're in that like implement part. We're now doing the full water through the pipes of like looking at where the impact will be. But I think because this is so new, the customers need a trusted partner who have literally done this before, because so many people, if you look on LinkedIn now, are like agent experts. They're now thought leaders in AI, and they have like, it's crazy. Like it's, so there's a lot of confusion for
Yeah,
folks. But
massive
I think
amount.
getting the strategy right, where it's like knowing where you're going to go, communicating that, then creating new benchmarks for the expectations of the team, doing the change management to enable, and then telling your people, this is how you can amplify yourself. So then amplifying them so they are buying into it for what's in it for them. You know, like people are not going to adopt the technology unless there's a what's in it for them. If they think that you're going to take them out of a job, which most people think of right now, most people, employees, are probably afraid of their job. The economy is not great. So there's going to be like a, whoa, I'm not going to do this in case they think that I'm actually like not, I can like, I'll just stay back for a while because I don't want them to know that an agent can do a lot of what I'm doing because I've got a mortgage to pay. So you can kind of see the psychology, right, in like the decision. So that's what I'm seeing in market right now, which is interesting.
So it is early, and I think what's happened in businesses, your C-suite have gone, hey, this is really cool stuff. We've got to bake it into customer-facing products and services. So what we've seen in this kind of phase one adoption of AI and agents, the investment's been in products and services that are externally focused.
Yep.
What we're starting, however, to see is, the CFO going, oh, that's all great, and we're getting better revenue and stickier customers, but whoa, what about this massive OpEx thing in my P&L that I can optimize and get significant benefit from? So I do think we've been tinkering with jobs and workforce, and we have got kind of amoeba AI at the moment that's not overly mature. It's not going to be, from what I can read and research, it is not going to be long until we have pretty good autonomous agents that can do multiple workflows that a human would, or multiple humans would have done. That's not too far away. So I think this next 18 months will be, the focus will go from products and services adoption to really thinking about workforce productivity, workforce optimization. And that's where my points around honesty, it's a really cool thing. We're all playing with it at the moment and creating some really great stuff, but I don't think the dots have fully joined in the workforce, certainly not here in Australia, about the impact this is going to have, and quite significant impact. And that though will become lots of new opportunities, lots of new things that people can be doing. And I actually think people, if we're honest with them, can start preparing for that and start mobilizing themselves for that, because the economy is crap and everyone's got a mortgage, etc. There will be a natural incentive to embrace and adopt, because it's kind of like a survival of the fittest. And young workforce, oh man, some of the stuff I've seen under 18s do with AI. There was a case went around internally at work last week. A 12 or 13-year-old in Sydney wanted to create a tutor. She's very academically minded. She wants to do well. Her parents couldn't afford private tuition. She recognized that some of her friends had private tuition. So she downloaded the New South Wales curriculum for her year. She used, I don't know which agent, but let's say it was ChatGPT. She couldn't think of the prompt. So she used generative to ask for a prompt, and how do I build a tutor to teach me and help me and guide me through this year? It did. She built it, and the kicker was also, she wanted the agent to not only help her and teach her, but to demonstrate why the work she was doing, whether it was maths or whatever it was, connected to the real world and work. She wanted to actually understand, well, why am I doing this algebra? What's the point? But she wanted that next level that you never get at school. I mean, this is a 12, 13-year-old girl who will be in the work, who will be in the workforce in 5 years' time.
Yeah.
So that,
it's incredible.
Our
Incredible.
existing workforce needs to know this is coming. And this, again, this transparency and honesty. If you're a business leader and you're recruiting or you're thinking about your workforce and retention of where you're putting your dollars, we have to upskill at scale freakingly quickly our existing workforce. There is no choice but to adopt. And I think only by being honest and truthful will we get the action and momentum needed, because otherwise we're going to have a real societal problem in 5, 6, 7, 8 years time. And that I think is that is a responsibility, that is bold, and is a duty of care I think we've got to bring to the market.
Yeah, I love it. This been incredible, Gareth. The advice, just the honesty, the transparency, the way you're thinking through, because this is new. And I think there's a thing that everyone needs to realize. You're like, guys, we're all learning, and it's part of our collective duty is to share how our thinking has evolved, but also why, because it helps bring everyone else on the journey. And I think, Gareth, this has been such incredible insights for folks. Gareth is available on LinkedIn. We're going to share this, his profile and some of his research along with the podcast. He's really good on social as well, so follow him and DM him if you want to get any direct conversation, because I know he's doing a lot with a lot of our customers right now. So he's got a really great perspective. Gareth, thank you. It's been a privilege and a pleasure to be on this journey together with you. And I'm excited to see what the next version of TQ looks like when I start to look around. It's going to be exciting.
I need to eat my own dog. I need to eat my own dog food on that one, Siobhan. It's
my team call me a cyborg sometimes, so like there's a balance. Talk to you soon, Gareth. Thank you for joining us. Take care, everyone.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for listening, everyone.